The broadcast is live.
Okay. Well, tonight is a really special night for us here. We have a special guest, Kevin KB9RLW, checking in from the desert in Arizona, and I would definitely want to talk to you a bit about that whole scenario,
Okay.
Kevin. Joined by my co-hosts tonight, we've got Chris Kilo 2 Charlie Juliet Bravo from Connecticut, and Tim November 9 Sierra Alpha Bravo from Illinois. Thanks very much for joining us. We greatly appreciate it. And tonight's stream is, what I wanted. One of the things that I wanted to do in combination with Chris and Tim was to have a series of videos of what we call ham heroes. These would be hams who have really made a name for themselves, either with YouTube channels that have got a decently high number of subscribers, and Kevin tonight has more than 40,000, or hams that have some kind of a reputation beyond YouTube. And I wanted to reach out to Kevin. He was one of the very first people that I thought of because I've been following Kevin's channel for years. His channel has the nickname The Old Tech Guy, and he covers a lot of different ground, ham radio wise, and even some other stuff into some other fields. We'll get into that a little bit with Kevin as the hour goes along. So Kevin, welcome. It's great to have you here with us. And you know what? I just wanted to say that it's a pleasure to have you join us. But I am curious, and would you mind starting off just with how did you get started with this whole YouTube thing?
Oh, boy, we're going way back. Well, due to various factors I don't want to get into, I left the job I was at, or lost the job I was at. And what is this? Oh, I'm sorry, I was distracted. Somebody says hello from Chile. Hello, Chile. And I was discovering that it's difficult to get even an interview when you're over 50 years old. These automated systems that all the HR departments have at the forefront filter out things. And they're not supposed to discriminate on age, but from somebody who's been in corporate America most of his life, they do. So anyway, after about a year and 140 resumes that I sent out, I got 2 interviews at jobs that were not in my field, and I wasn't doing too well with that. So a friend of mine said, well, you do all this tech stuff. Why don't you just start doing YouTube videos and see if you can make any money on YouTube? So I started making some videos, and they were really poorly done. It was just a little Samsung handheld camcorder and poor production skills and poor production software. I look back on those early videos, I'm kind of embarrassed by them, but I started doing them and people started watching and the audience grew, and I got to the point where I could monetize the channel. And after about 8 months, I started making just a little bit of money on the channel. And after about a year, I was getting close to being able to break even on some of my bills. And so it just kept growing from there.
Nice. Fantastic. That's excuse me. What you say about starting off in a crude fashion, I'm paraphrasing here, completely mirrors my start, because I had some rough stuff that I actually ended up pulling down from the channel because as I look back and I realized, man, that stuff is painful. There might have been some good information in there, but not so much. So Kevin, you are you how long have you been a ham now?
I was licensed in, I think, 1983 when I was, 82 or 83. I was 16 years old. So however many years that is, I can't math right now. It's the end of the day and my brain is tired. But yeah, since 1983.
Very cool.
Well, next year it'll be 40 years.
Go ahead, Chris, please.
I was going to say next year it'll be 40 years. So there you go.
40. Wow.
Yeah.
That's time only goes one way, does it?
Very
anyway, true. Yeah, for a while, since I was a kid.
Well, what spurred that interest in getting into ham? Do you remember?
I don't remember a lot from back then, but I was always into electronics. I was wiring switches and batteries and light bulbs up when I was 10 years old, and making my own little spaceships out of refrigerator boxes my dad would bring home, and putting his oscilloscope in there with a microphone so I could see my voice, like in the sci-fi movies. Doing stuff like that when I was a little kid, and I just kept playing with electronics. And then in high school, I think my dad worked with somebody who was a ham, and I was interested in radio. I'd been building crystal radios, listening to shortwave and so on. And my dad got me a visit over to a gentleman's shack. I can't remember his call sign, but he had quite the setup. He was doing slow scan TV with long persistence phosphor CRTs, and he had a teletype machine that he was doing ready with, and it was really fascinating and interesting. And at that point, I decided I want to get this license, and so I started studying.
That's cool. Very cool.
What was your first rig?
I got my novice license in 1983. I think November was when we went to Chicago to pass the test. And this was when you had to go to the FCC office. So my dad drove me to Chicago from Niles, Michigan, which was quite a drive. And I sat across the table from the man in black. And I mean, he looked the part. He had the suit, and he had tinted glasses and his tie, and sat there with his arms folded, just staring at me the whole time, But I got my novice license, and then I started saving up money mowing. Well, I was going to mow lawns in the summer. I was planning on getting a radio the next year, but Christmas came, and I opened the wrapping paper on one box, and I saw Heathkit across the box. I don't know if you guys ever had any experience with Heathkit or not, but but yeah, Dad got me an HW8, little QRP CW transceiver, and I spent the next 3 days in my little work table down in the basement building it, and I was on the air 4 days later with the HW8.
That's a great little radio.
Yeah, it was fun. I made a contact in Hawaii on 15 meters with it, and it was about 1.5 watts out, and I was in Michigan.
Wow, nice.
Lots of thrills with that little radio.
Yep. Yeah, Heathkit. When I got my novice in 1976, I built an HW16, and
okay.
Yeah, and I remember like back then it was when they said like the power limit for novice was 75 watts. But the power control on the HW16, if you cranked it all the way up, it was 90 watts. So I operated as a scofflaw as a novice. I'm like, I'm going to full 90 watts.
Woohoo! It's not the power; it's the antenna.
Exactly right.
I think we're all of a common mind.
Kevin, I think most of the folks watching are probably more familiar with the stuff you've done since you got into the RV. And you've done some fantastic antenna experiments out there, like when you in some of those places where you're able to set up. And you've had like some really unique antennas that you've tested out. So which one of those really kind of stands out to you?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you've done a bunch of them.
Yeah, well, most of the antenna experiments were the odd antennas were back at the house when I was building. I was modifying mag loops and making a half loop and trying different things. But out here, I really just sort of evaluated more standard antenna styles. I'd never built a doublet, so I built a doublet, which is my favorite wire antenna now. Gosh, I don't know if any of them really stand out. I just kind of play around with an antenna, see how it behaves, file that away, and move on. And the doublet, I guess, is the one that I would reflect on the most, because its performance is so good across the bands. Most antennas, resonant antennas, performance falls off as you move up in frequency. So you have a 40 meter dipole, you can use it on 20, you can use it on 10, but performance falls off as you move up. I'm not sure of the exact reason, but I've noticed, that the signals aren't quite as strong. But with the doublet, it's pretty much a non-resonant antenna, and you're tuning it, but the performance is flat. It's good on all the bands. I didn't see any loss in performance when I went up to 10 meters versus 40 or 80. So that's the one I think that would stand out the most to me, and it's the oldest antenna design that I've played with too, and I guess that's the reason it's still around. It's just such a good design.
Yep. How's the RV, like the power holding up in there?
Fine. I've got, what just happened? Somebody pulled my webpage up.
I'm showing it. So this is a new feature. It's a new feature to me. I can actually put up a slideshow, and I've got a few slides that will sort of run through, but I'm just showing off your home page on YouTube here.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's.
Yeah, because you did a lot of
Seems
power
like there's
work.
things missing. Power work. Okay.
Yeah, when you were like setting the power up for the shack and setting it up for the RV, and I know you had like separate systems that you put together for that, right?
Well, the main thing that I did was the desk has its own battery, and that's what's powered by the solar panels. The RV's house battery is separate from it, right. And I have a separate panel for that, little 80-watt panel, because there's not a lot of consumption there. It just powers the lights and the water pump and the controller board and the fridge. So the desk was really its own thing. I've got 100 amp hour lithium in there now. When I started out, I had 2 sealed lead acid batteries, and that was a lot of weight. Lead acid batteries, they have an internal resistance. They discharge themselves, and they're not that efficient, really. The power, you don't get all the power out you put into it. Eventually, I swapped those out for a single AGM battery, which was better. AGM uses starved electrolyte, so the plates are not floating in water. There's glass mats between the plates that are damp, so you could actually drill a hole in an AGM battery and it's not going to leak. But it's still lead. It's still really, really heavy. The roof has two 100-watt panels, so I've got only 200 watts of solar input, which is not a lot compared to what a lot of people do. But my consumption is very, very efficient. I don't use a lot of power. I don't watch TV. I don't have appliances. Really, the solar just runs my laptop, charges my phone and tablet, the radios, and any other accessories and things I do here on the desk. I run the inverter if I'm going to use test gear or power tools, but the inverter's off pretty much all the time. Everything runs directly off of the 12-volt system as much as possible, except, of course, the laptop. But then I've got a little DC to DC converter that takes 12 directly to 19, so that was 42% more efficient than running an inverter in the laptop's power supply. So 200 watts doesn't sound like a lot, but I have excess power. I did a video recently where I actually ran the 3D printer off the solar setup all day. I was printing for about 4 or 5 hours.
I saw that.
And by the time I was done printing, the battery had actually come up. It was still charging the battery while I was running the printer. So, so yeah, I do have a bridge though. I have a switch I can flip where I can put a quarter ohm power resistor between the solar battery in the desk and the house battery on the RV. So if the RV's battery is ever dead, I can bridge across to it and charge it, or actually run the fridge and the lights, the water pump from this system. And that's got a bridge up to the engine battery that I can flip a switch on the dashboard. So I've got redundancy throughout all 3 of the systems.
Right. Yeah, that's a great design.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm just saying it's a great design. So.
Oh, thank you.
No, absolutely.
Okay. The Flea.
Hey, now you recognize this, Kevin?
Yeah, that's the Cw Flea.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about this one?
As I said in the video, Zactech, I had his whisper beacon, which I really liked, and I also have really enjoyed little tiny CW transmitters in the past, rock-bound transmitters. And I was looking at his whisper beacon, and I thought, with some different software and a key input, I could make this into a CW transmitter. And I started down that road, and Harry over at Zactech started a dialogue with me. He really liked the idea, and so we sort of threw some ideas back and forth, and he extended his hardware into what you see there. And we tweaked it and modified it and tested and played with it, and that's the result. So it's a 3-band, 350 milliwatt Flea power transmitter. But it can cover 3 bands, and it can move around in frequency. It's not rock bound, so you can tune across the range of the band, and couple it with a receiver, like you would with any other crystal transmitter, to have a complete station. So it's basically a toy, but it's really cool. I used it for field day, actually.
Did you? How did that work out?
It would have been better except for the weather and my arm. I'm kind of starting to lose the ability to raise my right arm in certain directions, and operating the key was kind of painful. Every time I was hitting the key, I was getting stabs of pain in my shoulder.
Oh,
Ouch.
So I did 4 contacts on 20 meters on Saturday, and I was surprised at how easy it was. If I answered a CQ, I think I answered, I wrote it down. Let's see. I answered 15 CQs, and I made 8 contacts.
Well, all right.
You know, so that's better than 50%.
it sure is. That's terrific.
But then storms came in. We're in monsoon season right now. In fact, the RV's shaking a little. I don't know if you'll see that in anything around me, but the winds are really blowing. We're getting massive rainstorms and thunderstorms that are coming through every day. And Saturday evening, we had a microburst that I ended up riding out in the metal barn. I didn't even stay in the RV. It was so bad. In fact, I kind of expected when I came out. It was a 30-minute storm. And the wind was blowing so hard that the front of the metal building was actually flexing from the wind.
Wow.
I expected to come out and find the RV in ruins, but it survived. So, but anyway, that kind of put a damper on field day for a while there, and the storms continued into the evening. Sunday morning, I got on and I went on 40 meters and made another 4 contacts. And again, it was very easy. I was surprised at how often people came back when I answered their CQ. The longest distance contact with it was NV9L, Valerie. You might recognize her from Ham Nation. She does their contesting segments. And she's over just...
Zion, I think, isn't she?
Pardon?
Zion? I
Is she
thought
what?
She's a neighbor of mine, kind of, I think.
She's just south of Chicago, isn't she?
I thought she was just north. I thought she was from Zion, which is like the town next door.
Well, I looked her up on QRZ, and it was just south of Chicago because I made a map to show the distance. It was a little over 1,400 miles with 300 milliwatts out of the Flea. So,
how about that?
yeah. I wanted to fill a log page. I would have liked to have done more, but between the arm and the storms, I filmed what I could. Though I'll put together a little video for the channel to show, that it actually does work.
That's like Tracy and I have been doing a lot of QRP operation. I did for field day. I did QRP, and I mean it's workout, but you can do it.
Sure, yeah. It's all in how you operate. Calling CQs is not going to be too productive, but if you answer CQs, then they'll come back to you pretty often.
Yeah.
I used to have an UKITS. Well, actually, TEDTech had it at that time. H1B1, HB1B. Is it HB1B? A little TEDTech unit, or a little UKITS unit, little tiny thing that was a 4-band CW transceiver. I wish I still had it, because they're kind of fun to. Well, you can kick back on the couch, run a coax over, and just operate CW.
That is cool. All right, I want to ask you about something else here. You had a 60-foot spider beam mast, and I like my spider beam mast, my telescopic poles. How was that? Do you still use it, Kevin? And how did you like it?
I like it a lot. It's sitting right here at the base of my couch. I trip over it once in a while. It's in its box. The box is too big to store anywhere else in the RV, so I will be putting it up again sometime. It takes a little bit of effort and work to put it up, so I have to be at a location where I'm going to be there for a while, so I might put it up again this winter when I go back down to Senator Wash. Where I'm at now, I'm on somebody's property, so I have to minimize what I do so I don't get in their way,
Right.
But yeah, I really like it. I was impressed with its durability. I only had it guide in 2 directions, I think a third of the way up, and then the other 2 directions, another third of the way up. And we had a windstorm that season that it did some damage to somebody's RV because we had over 60-mile-an-hour gusts and at night. And I expected that thing to be tangled up and messed up the next morning, but there it stood. It was fine. It just flexed and bent like it should,
Yep.
And it was fine.
Question for you on that one. Now, I tend to, I notice in this video here, it looks like you're running a vertical just straight up the pole. Now, have you actually got a dipole set up on that one?
That time I had it up. No, I had. I think I had a carabiner about 25 or 30 feet up that I had a cord through, so I could pull an antenna up to that point. But I did have a wire running up the full length of it that it was just fed with a 9-to-1. It was non-resonant, just vertical wire. That was not the best place to do it because I was surrounded by other RVs, and so that was extremely noisy. I was picking up everybody else's solar charge controllers and inverters, and inverters cast out a lot of noise. When I'm parked in those areas where there are a lot of RVs around me, there's all kinds of hash noise across the bands, and it's all the people around me with inverters that are running.
No, I ran into a similar situation in a provincial park here last fall, where my only option, because I was in a campsite and it was just cluttered with pine trees, and literally the canopy was 8 to 10 feet above your head all over the entire campsite. And I had no way of knowing when I booked the campsite. Mm-hmm. There was one opening, and it was about 10 feet in diameter. And I could put my 50-foot DX wire mast up, and I used a 40, 20, and 10 meter end fed, just literally taped the far end to the top, and I had an S9 noise level. Of course, there are RVs all around me, so that made things very challenging on that occasion. But I want to ask you, so do you have any idea, if somebody were to use this 60-foot mast? I mean, I've got the 40-foot one, and I find that I can probably put the center point where the feed point of a dipole or an off-center fed dipole probably up around the 33 foot mark. If I put it up any higher, that pole is going to go like this. Yeah. So I'm wondering, with the 60-footer, could you get it up much higher? Because clearly the elements are going to get pretty narrow, pretty skinny by the time you get to the top of that.
Yeah, it is kind of flexible, and it starts out bigger at the base, but it still tapers up to the very, very thin. So you probably would get another 10 feet over what you have now, but not that much more, because it's just going to do the same thing and right over.
Yeah, and 10 feet, in my estimation, isn't going to make that much of a difference in practical performance.
That's right.
I really like the Max Gain Systems mast that I have. That's what I've been using to support the doublet, and it's a lot more rigid. It collapses down to a smaller size. I don't remember what the price is on the spider beams, but the Max Gain one was a little expensive. I think it's somewhere around $200 or $300. Is that right?
Now, that one's significant. I mean, that's pretty heavy duty all the way up to the top, isn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, I put my doublet all the way up to the top of it. I still see a little bit of flex at the top, but it's not too bad. As long as the leg wires are not pulling it in any direction, if they're on a straight line with the center of the mast, it stays pretty much straight up. It's much beefier.
So, questions about this one. The first one it's made of metal, isn't it?
No,
it's not. What's it made of?
It's fiberglass, but it's thick fiberglass.
Okay, yeah. Is it pretty much? It's almost the same diameter all the way to the top, unlike a typical.
No, it gets smaller because it telescopes. It gets smaller because it telescopes inside, but it's I think the top piece is as big around as my thumb, so it's maybe 3/4 of an inch.
All right.
So it's much heftier, and the fiberglass walls are real thick on it, and they're embedded with treatment for infrared or ultraviolet blocking, so that the sun doesn't break it down. And it's got those really nice quick release clamps. You just release the clamp and slide it up and clamp it back down, so you can quickly adjust it or take it up and put it down. I've taken it down with a windstorm coming in 5 minutes and put it back up afterwards with just releasing the clamps and collapsing it and putting it back up.
Did you find? Now, I'm sorry. How tall did you say that one was?
That one is 33 feet.
33 feet. Okay.
But you can buy them however you like. That's the neat thing with MGS. They're a little more expensive, but you can build your own pretty much. You can buy the individual components and put together the mast you want. They have put together kits, like this is a 33-foot version, this is a whatever version that you can buy all at once. Or you can just go in and say, I want these pieces and these pieces and these pieces, and put together the mast you want.
Do you find they need more guying than something like the Spider Beam,
No.
or are they heavier? No.
No, they're pretty strong. So as long as you got a good base, and I use a fence post, I use a T-post. I just pound it into the ground about 1.5 feet or so, and usually that's pretty strong. And then I'll guy it a little over halfway up, or maybe about 2/3 of the way up, and I just use 3 paracord lines to guy it. And it's been up in some really hefty windstorms as well, including a microburst here last year, the one that I filmed the flood from. I don't know if you saw that video, the monsoon flood. Yeah. I think you could see the mast in that video. The wind was blowing like crazy, and I panned up to it with the camera, and you could see that it really wasn't moving all that much. And those were
that's incredible.
40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts coming through.
That says a lot for that thing.
Yeah. It's been up through some really, really hefty storms, and it's held up just fine.
So Don, WJ3U is asking if you still use the 18-meter spider pole, and I guess the answer was yes. You're not using it in that location now.
Oh, that's Don. I know. He's been on my channel for years. Hi, Don. I do when I can, but like I say, I got to be at a place where I've got the room to do it, where I'm not going to get in anybody's way, because you got to guy those guy wires out pretty far to take up the load. And it's got to be a place where I'm going to be there for a while. So the opportunities haven't presented themselves. On the air, didn't hear you during field day.
No,
Well, thanks for listening, Don.
All right, I want to show something else here. All right, so this is the doublet versus end-fed half-wave noise rejection comparison. What can you tell us about this one?
Well, I had noticed when I put the doublet up that it was quieter. I wasn't getting as much hash noise and the general kind of electrical noise you get from devices, and I didn't know if I was actually hearing that or not. Signals were booming in. It didn't seem like it was attenuating signals. It was just there wasn't that much noise. And so I did a comparison. I put up a raw end-fed half-wave, the standard design using Steve Ellington's 49-to-1 transformer, and compared the two. And the doublet without a choke, that's important, without a choke, was definitely, or the doublet, the end-fed half-wave without a choke was much noisier than the doublet. Then I put a choke in line with the end-fed half-wave, and then they were more on a level playing field. So my theory is, and I think it's sound, since the doublet is a symmetrical system, and that transformer, that 4-to-1 balun, is a symmetrical system, that transformer for common mode noise acts like a choke, because common mode noise comes down the feed line completely the same as if the feed line is 1 wire instead of 2 wires. So where that goes through that choke, or it goes through that balun, that's basically like a choke. If you consider both wires to be 1 wire, it's a choke, and it's choking off the noise. That's my theory. But definitely the doublet was quieter by itself than the end-fed half-wave until I put an additional choke on the end-fed half-wave. So you'd have a little bit more insertion loss with that choke. It wouldn't be that much. I think in the end, if you had a choke on your end-fed half-wave, then they're on a level playing field. But just the raw antenna, the doublet was quieter without adding an extra choke.
Yep. Nice.
Anybody? We get these
Right,
awkward.
I got a tough question for you here. What have we got here?
Star Trek mug. My son
All
got
right,
me
are you a
that
Trekkie?
Father's Day. Oh yeah.
Are you a Trekkie?
Oh yeah.
Well, we can't end the conversation right there. Yeah, that's right. You were showing.
Well, what do you want to know?
Okay,
Wait a minute.
so first of all,
Tracy and I have one of these, so
Danger, Will Robinson.
exactly. So,
by the way, trivia bit. Lost in Space, from the second season on, the opening theme was John Williams' first gig.
Was it really?
I knew he wrote it. I didn't know it was his first. That's cool.
That was his first big commission. Yeah.
Okay, so original series versus next generation.
They each have their merits.
Come on.
They each have their merits. The Next Generation obviously has richer stories and more content because it ran longer.
Not even close.
The original series is campy, but it's got some
Yes,
great
it-
stories. The Doomsday Machine was scary as hell.
I love
It
that.
gave me nightmares
With
when
the
I was a
Planet
kid.
Eater?
Yeah.
Oh, that was my favorite. Yeah, that was awesome.
Trouble with Tribbles.
Yeah, Trouble with Tribbles. Oh yeah.
Okay, so which Star Trek movie was the best?
Oh.
Really?
Wow.
Star Trek
Well,
Wrath
the
of
Voyage
Khan.
Home or the Wrath of Khan? Probably the Wrath of Khan.
Yep.
Without question.
Yeah, the best Star Trek movie, Galaxy Quest.
It's Sigourney Weaver. I like it.
A trick answer. Okay, I got a question for you. Here's a trivia question. In which Star Trek movie does no one die?
No red shirt.
Oh, the
know.
whales, wasn't it?
The
Bingo.
Voyage Home.
The
Voyage
Voyage
Home.
Home.
I stopped
Nobody
watching.
dies.
I stopped watching after
Yeah.
3. It was one with the whales, I think, right?
It was the one with the whales, yeah.
Nobody died,
Was that
even when they were getting on the
Nobody
Enterprise.
died in the entire movie. That was very impressive. I thought that was fantastic.
Was that
Oh,
the one with V'ger? Was that?
No, that's the first
No.
one.
first one, right? Okay.
Yeah. No.
V'ger.
The Voyage Home was the one where they end up time traveling back to Earth to find humpback whales.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, the V'ger one, I was thinking about that because the Voyager itself now is like getting pretty far out there. So it's like
I
is it
think
gonna-
they just ended the mission like yesterday, didn't they?
Yeah, I know yeah, it could be, but maybe it's
I
going to
think-
go out and build up this whole big thing.
I think it was. I just saw a news clip on it. I think that it was maybe today or yesterday that NASA has officially ended the Voyager missions. They're not going to try to communicate with one or both of them anymore.
Yeah, they're
I
pretty.
could be
far-
wrong.
They were getting some anomalous data, I think, on the positioning or something like that the last time I was looking at it. And they couldn't explain what it was.
Yeah, they did.
So,
It was they're getting out of the heliosphere, so the interstellar radiation is starting to affect the electronics more, and they expected it to start failing, and that's what's been happening.
it's looking for its creator.
Yeah,
That's right.
I thought that was actually a clever idea for the movie, though. I mean, they
It
are
sure
on their
was.
way out.
Yeah.
It
They're-
sure
they're-
was.
They'll probably outlast our civilization by a long shot.
No doubt. Okay.
Yikes.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, a lot of QRP guys, and here's one of my, I don't know, I maybe I need to just take a pill on this stuff, but it often amazes me how people will go out, they'll rush out and buy a QRP rig, and almost immediately thereafter, they got to buy an amplifier to run with it. And it's almost like when I look at that from a logical perspective, I'm thinking, what are you doing? It's like you're not accepting the challenge. You're not embracing the challenge. You're
What are
not
you
going
doing?
out there and making the most of it. I mean, I actually at one point when I bought my first FT817, I had an ICOM 7200. I didn't have a portable rig, and that was my only HF rig, and I sold it to raise money to pay for the 817. So I was all in. I mean, I had no. It's like the Spaniards, they go to the New World and then they burn the boat.
ships.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like I made it so that I had to learn how to succeed with QRP, whereas a lot of guys, I see them as the 705, right? The 705 is the latest example. Well, I got myself a 705. Now I got to go buy myself a matching amplifier for it.
Yeah.
So Kevin, first and foremost, I want to ask you about using, and you know what, we're all pals here. What's your thoughts on using an amplifier with a QRP rig?
There's use cases. My own case is a good use case. I'm in a power restricted setup, so I'm always looking for efficiency and how to draw less power from my storage, so that I can use it longer. So the 705 actually made sense for me, being that it's got so many features. In fact, I'm thinking about doing a video just on. I could make a list of the things I do with the 705. It's so many features. But there are times when you want more power. I originally had a 7300 in here. The problem with that was it drew sometimes over an amp on receive. And so it was a big power hit just to use it to listen. So it makes sense for me. But as far as the guy that just gets one just to have one and then goes out and buys an amp, yeah, I don't understand myself that much. I think a lot of people still are under the power thing where they got to have more power. Powers, I got to be heard. It's like in the CB days when people would go in and just turn all the pots all the way to the right just to make it louder, and they didn't even have any idea what they were doing. But they can get that extra half a watt out, and they think they're going to be getting that much further out when it's not really the power, it's the antenna.
Right.
But I guess there's use cases. If you're going to go camping and you're going to take a QRP rig with you, I could see wanting to just have a power amplifier available in case you needed it. Maybe there's somebody you actually really wanted to contact, or maybe you're in trouble and you need to call for help, and you might want that extra power for that. So just to have it on hand, I can understand that. But as far as just buying the QRP radio and then buying an amp so that you have the power, well, then if you're in a house, or why not just buy a more powerful radio right off the get-go?
Right.
Yeah.
It could be that you want to invest just so much money. Maybe you're going to build a simple shack in your apartment, and you want to take it out to the parks from time to time. So then when you're at home, you want to run a little power. You buy an amplifier and have it there at home when you've got the QRP rig at home. And then you could still take the radio and go drive to a park and throw a wire up in a tree if you want to. So that would make sense too.
Yeah, I actually published a video on why I wouldn't buy an ICOM 705, and it was an exercise. Honestly, it was a mental exercise. I will probably own one at some point, but it was just okay. If I took a contrary viewpoint, how would I build out the case, and what is the thinking behind that? And I had a number of people respond to me with exactly that scenario that you just outlined, Kevin, and that is, I've got one radio. And it's going to be my shack radio, and it's going to be my portable radio. By having an amplifier for it, I can sit it here at home, and I can run a little bit power if I want to. Yeah. And when I go to the field, I can just take the 705, and that makes a lot of sense.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So that's a scenario where that works out. And the 705, I use it as a scanner. I programmed all the emergency services in Kingman into one memory bank, so I use it as a scanner. I listen to broadcast radio with it. I get on the ham bands with it. I listen to shortwave with it. I receive satellites with it. It can do so much in one little box. It's just amazing. It's the same kind of a win as Yaesu had with the FT817 when they brought it out. Mm-hmm. There was nothing on the market like it. Yeah. And the 705 kind of got there first in that way.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Like for folks that, it's the main radio, and you just use want some power. When you can operate at home off of mains power, then you can. And when you take a QRP rig out with you, it's still the same radio. So yeah, that model I think probably makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Tim, what are your thoughts on the 705?
I used one once. It worked. It's fine. I have stronger feelings about the amplifier than I do anything else. I mean,
well, let's shift, because honestly, that's why I brought that slide up. I wanted to talk about it.
I know you love pain. Okay, so when you want to get 5 watts and work QRP SSB, man. Okay, with 5 watts, that's a challenge. I get that. But to go and throw an amplifier on the thing, I mean. I work digital, so if I'm running more than 10 watts, it's a crime. Anyway, so I wouldn't buy a 5 watt or 10 watt radio and then stick an amplifier on it. Most of them sound like crap anyway. So
the 705, by the way, they really did a great job on heat sinking and thermal capacity for the finals on that thing. I experimented running digital modes at the full 10 watts just to see how fast it would warm up. I couldn't get it hot. I could not get it to heat up. I mean, they give you a little temperature gauge. There's a red area at the top. I could never even get close to it. And even with long transmissions, long PSK 31, like a whole paragraph conversation, 3 or 4 minute long transmission at 10 watts, it still wouldn't get warm.
Well,
That really impressed me.
Speaking of that, didn't you do a video where you clamped a great big heat sink on the back of
The
a radio?
FT817?
Yeah, which one was that?
The FT817, yeah.
That was the 817, wasn't it? Yeah.
That's one of the 3 times that I've made the front page of Hackaday. That was on my bucket list sometime in my life. I want to get on the front page of Hackaday, and I made it. But yeah, no, I was reading about the finals in it, and they were rated at 10 watts. And I knew that where they were physically in the radio because I replaced them in one before. And that fin when you're facing the front of the radio, the fin on the back right is where the finals are. And so I took an old CPU heatsink, put a little thermal compound on it, and clamped it onto that fin, and found that I could run digital at the full 5 watts without it heating up too much. That was plenty of heat dissipation right there to take care of the problem. And then I could run it at its full 5 instead of 2.5 watts when I was doing digital. And yeah, that made Hackaday. I was shocked.
Yeah, well done. Congratulations on that. But back to the amplifier for just a minute. Now, you tested that amplifier. You found it was actually, for a Chinese-made amp, it was actually pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't what they claimed it would be. You could push it to 50 watts, but because it's only running, those MOSFETs were made for like cellular and other type of applications. And they're expecting a 24 volt or is it a 48 volt supply? It's like a really high. It's a higher voltage than 12. So when you're running them at 12, they really don't have the headroom. So you could push it to 50 watts, but it's going to start compressing and distorting at that point. CW, I found that I could reliably get about 35 watts out of it, which is reasonable. And then, of course, if you're running single sideband, it's RMS, so you've got to figure times 0.707 to get where you're actually going to be for average power with sideband. That's a pet peeve of mine, and I know this is going to probably get bad comments, but you go across the HF spectrum now, and you see lower sideband transmissions that are casting off energy 6 kilohertz into the upper sideband. And somebody's overdriving an amp, the finals are clipping, and they're throwing out that noise. And it's like, well, I got a 400 watt amp, and I'm pushing it until that meter gets up by 400 watts. Yeah, but you're running single sideband. Take 400 times 0.707. That's what your power is on that amp when you're running sideband. It's RMS,
Sounds great too.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. It sounds like the mic is down inside their mouth and they're chewing on it while speaking.
I just.
So Tracy and I were operating when Tracy first got out to his site for field day. We got on the air and we were talking a little bit, and Tracy's like, "Well, your audio sounds great." I said, "That's cool," And this guy comes up and he interrupts and says, "Man, you're all over the place." It turned out it was me, and I was like, "Well, what do I do? I haven't touched anything." Well, it turns out Tracy had figured it out. I did some work on my computer, right? And Hammer Deluxe, of course, controls the radio. And the processor, the audio processor was cranked wide open. It was at 100%. Hence the reason why I had a signal was like 6 megahertz wide. It was like just nuts. I didn't realize.
Yeah, you were clipping.
Probably I was all over the map. Yeah. But like Tracy said, you sound great. I said, well, it probably tuned right into me and sounded awesome. But
well, yeah, you probably had a lot of punch to your audio.
Oh, yeah, it sure did.
when you run a compressor, well, people run a compressor, but they don't really understand what a compressor does.
Right.
It's a dynamic amplification. It amplifies lower sounds more than it amplifies higher sounds. So it brings that energy up.
Right.
And that gives you more punch, but that also starts to push your peaks higher too, and you start clipping.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, Tim, we got a question for you. Don't know if you saw it there. So Don's asking, do you have any new antenna designs coming up?
Well, let's see. I just listed the Micro G5RV, which I thought was tons of fun. And there'll be a 40 meter version of that coming up. And then I want to do a Delta loop, like a portable Delta loop. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
And then I got an idea for this. A friend and I were talking about, you ever heard of a Marconi? You look up a Marconi antenna. It's not a portable antenna, so it'd be a fixed antenna, but like small space, small footprint for like gardens and stuff. I want to do that one too. So I got my summer cut out.
Nice.
Very cool.
Looks like you got all the tools you need right behind you.
I hope so. Oh, yeah. Well, it goes that way for a while too. So
I do miss having room for that.
Hmm.
I have to fit everything I own in a 30
I no,
foot by 8 foot by 10
your
foot
lifestyle
box.
makes me jealous. That's what I want to do. I want to take the dog. I want to take just the minimal amount of stuff that I need and hop in the air cover and just chuck
Yeah,
it. Have all of this crap.
It is fun. I mean, the view outside, I can sit on my couch and look out the window, and at times I've watched container ships floating by on the ocean. I've watched birds in the trees. I've watched, like out here, I look out across the desert. I might see coyote running around. It's the view outside the window changes, and the geography is really interesting.
The last time I was in Kingman, it must have been like 1996 or something like that. And Kingman was just a big truck stop. Is it still like that, or has it branched out now?
Oh no, it's a regular little city. There's shopping malls, and not shopping malls, but shopping centers and stores. All the stuff you could want. Several big vendors are here, Walmart and Smith's, like that. There's still the old town. You can go over to the old area, and there are interesting. I'm sorry, I got distracted. There are the older buildings, down the old Main Street where it's really small. I think that's what you're thinking of is that little old town. But now if you go over to the main strip from Stockton Hill Road, from the interstate on up through town, that's...
What's the interstate there? Is it 40? Is it 44? 40? Well, I can't
40.
remember.
I-40. Mm-hmm.
It's the first town. I was talking to Tracy earlier. We were talking about Kingman, Arizona, of all places. It's like, yeah, well, when you take 40 and you go through New Mexico, Gallup and Tucumcari, and then you pop over the border into Arizona, and the first thing you come to is Kingman, Arizona. And it was like, that's where the giant TA truck stop was. It's like, okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of truck stops. There's one up on the mountain or up on the hill, and then one closer to town. Yeah, it's a nice place. I'm outside of the city. I'm north of it, a few miles.
I spent some time in Flagstaff too. I always want to go back there.
I've been through Flagstaff, but I haven't spent time there. Right now would not be a good time to go there. It's monsoon season. They're getting major storms every single day.
I had lunch at a Taco Bell in Flagstaff once, and it was like, okay. It was pretty because of the mountains and the snow and stuff like that. And the tacos were exactly the same as they are at every other Taco Bell in the world.
Yeah.
No surprises.
You do have the hills and the mountains over there, though, in the Sedona area, which is really quite picturesque.
It is beautiful there. Yep.
The stargazing must be outstanding.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Not with the road. You got to get out in the desert.
Well, it's not the road; it's Kingman itself.
Kingman
in fact, I wonder if I can put a picture up here. You guys keep talking. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do this.
Yeah, 10, 15, 20 years ago, places like that would have been fantastic for stargazing. I'd love to get out there. But stargazing, like stargazing here, I mean, forget it. Yeah. I can see the planets. I mean, when I go out with a telescope, I can get as far as good images of Saturn, but everything else, I mean, it's just Chicago. Now, looking over the lake, it's dark over the lake, but that's east, and there really isn't anything too interesting east, at least for me. So.
I'm looking for a picture I took.
Here's a guy from Fort Huachuca. Okay, I was in Fort Irwin, so I know that.
Oh, I've got too much stuff. I have thousands and thousands and thousands of images and video clips that I've shot. But I have a picture I took of the light pollution from Kingman.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive. The light bubble. Night stuff. Night shot. Night shot? Is this it? No.
Probably the best viewing I ever had was somewhere in Montana. In the middle, and that was in the 90s, I think.
Where I go outside a quartzite, I'm pretty far away from any light sources, and it gets very dark out there.
Do you take a telescope with you, or you?
No, I don't. I don't have a telescope. I wish I've got enough interests. I can't keep up with all the things I try to do now.
I know how you feel, but the radio, the dog, and the telescope would go in the RV.
Yeah,
along with everything else. So.
I see a lot of people with telescopes, and you can look up and see the Milky Way with your naked eye. It's clear. It's amazing.
That's great.
And every night you'll see meteors if you look up long enough.
UFOs?
Yeah.
30,
I mean, technically, anything you can't identify is a UFO.
That is true.
What the heck? What the heck is that?
It's right near the 34th parallel, which I think is a hot spot, right?
Oh, you're not going to talk about. You're not going to start talking about ley lines, are you?
You want to? I can.
No, that's all right.
There was a book. There was a book that was written a few years ago about how most UFO sightings happen along the 34th parallel of the United States, and if you plot all of the things, there's like a line, like right across the Southwest and into Texas and wherever the 34th parallel goes. It's just a factoid.
Correlation does not equal causation, though.
Well, what's that other thing? Being a cryptozoology fan myself, lack of evidence is not evidence of lack.
Speaking of cryptozoology, my wife went to Arizona for a conference. It might have been Sedona or something like that. When we were first married, we were young. And she came back and she says, I saw a jackalope. I'm like, really? Like, yes. I was out walking very early in the morning. It was like 5:36 in the morning, and a jackalope ran by my path. And then I went into the gift shop or something like that, and they had one stuffed. I'm like, is that right? That's awesome.
It was chasing a snipe.
Yeah, sweetie, I hate to break your heart, but there's no such thing.
Jackalopes are also known as antelabbits.
Antelabbits. Yeah.
She's like, what are you talking about? There's no such stuff there in the shop.
Boy, are we ever drifting off topic?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You're forcing my head. All right, here. Now this is cool. I've always had this fascination with very low frequencies, the long wave and you've done some work down there, Kevin. Can you tell us about it?
Well, that experiment didn't work out. I have had limited success. Actually, back when I was in the house, I had an end-fed wire, and I made that bucket variometer. And the wire was, I think, a half a wavelength at 160 meters, which is a fairly common configuration. People will put up an inverted L for 160 and put basically a huge loading coil at its feed point to get on the band. They're not very efficient, but you can get out. I've been wanting to do some truly long antenna wires out here, actually put up, in that case, 470, 500 foot of wire. That would be a half a wavelength down at that frequency, down at 474 kilohertz, I think. But I haven't been to a location yet where I could probably do it here, actually, now that I think about it. There's a big, huge open desert area beyond the property fence line. But I would have to go out and walk among the cholo cacti, and that's not something you generally want to do if you can avoid it, because you just brush against one of those things, and their spines are hooked at the end. Whoa. So they call them the jumping cactus. They don't actually jump, but it doesn't take much of a brush for them to break off and roll onto you and dig more spines in. So, yeah, I stepped on one out there once. It went through my shoe and into my foot. I had to actually extract the needle before I could take the shoe off, because you couldn't slide the foot out. So, yeah, I probably could do it here, but I'd have to go out there, and I'd need about 2 or 3 more masts to really get it up in the air, because there's no trees here. So, it's one of those things. I want to do something like that. I want to put up a full, true half wavelength antenna for 474 kilohertz. I've got a transmitter I built.
I was going to say, what are you going to use for? What are you going to use for a rig? But okay.
Yeah, no, I've got a CW transmitter I built. Yeah, similar in fact to the Cw Flea. It's an Arduino, an SI5351 to generate the frequency, and then a MOSFET power amplifier. It puts out about 6 watts. So you would need a good antenna.
What if you got an answer? Who's gonna answer you?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There's not a lot of activity. I have listened out here. I have when I had the doublet up, I could hear some down there, and there's not a lot of activity. Population is really spread out here in the West. I can listen to 146.52 for days and not hear anything. There's just no activity. The same thing down on 630 meters when I tune around down there. I'll hear a couple of guys in California, maybe somebody up around Utah or Washington or Oregon, but you might be lucky to hear 1 or 2 or 3 stations, whereas if you tune to 160 meters, you'll hear, 20 or 30 stations.
Yeah.
There's just not that much activity. Back east, there was a problem with QRM. There's a guy down in Tennessee that owns a decommissioned airport that has one of the towers that was the beacon, the VLF beacon, and he put a 400 or 630 meter beacon on there, right on the popular frequency, 474 kilohertz. And people complained to him, and he's trolling. He enjoyed that. He would tell them, "Hey, I'm experimenting, and I'm allowed to experiment because I'm an amateur." And they're like, "Just move it down the band where nobody's at." He refuses to. He's on a freaking beacon tower, so you can hear him 3 or 4 states away, sitting there just beaconing his call sign over and over again on the calling frequency that everybody wants to use. So I had QRM back there, but I still managed to make a few contacts. You come out here, there's just not that much activity. So it's going to be a combination of things. I'll have to be lucky enough to be in a place where I've got the room to put up the antenna, and a place where there's activity, so I can actually talk to somebody.
Now you've got in that diagram that the wire is up at 33 feet, and I'm just wondering, is NVIS a thing at those frequencies? And I know there's a practical limitation as to how high you can get it up.
Oh yeah, it would be a very NVIS antenna. You start to throw more energy vertical as you come down from a half a wavelength in height above the ground. So as soon as you're under a half a wavelength above the ground, that pattern is starting to do that, and you're starting to put more energy up than out. So and the closer you get, the more it goes up.
I'm curious, at those wavelengths, could you just lay the antenna on the ground and get similar performance rather than putting it up at 33 feet? Don't they bury submarine antennas? Yeah,
but that's, you're talking down below 16 kilohertz, 12 kilohertz, even lower. The military antenna that was up in, it went from Wisconsin over to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Really? One antenna. That was their VLF transmitter. One of them.
Was that buried?
It was alternately buried and suspended, I guess, depending upon where it was.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, I read about it back when I was researching VLF. And,
there were 3 of them, I think. There was one there. There was one in the Southwest.
Crazy amounts of power too.
Yeah, they were blaming like the Taos hum on it or something like that. And then there's
an X-Files episode about that.
Yeah. And then there was one more. I can't remember where it was.
Well, hey guys, we're coming up on 58 minutes. Should we probably start to wrap it up?
We sure are. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Kevin. I certainly appreciate your time this evening.
Hey, it's been fun. Nice talking to you guys, and hey, thanks for watching the channel. I appreciate that.
That's great. Great to virtually meet you now.
Same here.
No, I had a great time. I've been watching your channel for years. You're always doing something new and different. So
it's
cool. Yeah, I
so
like
continued.
that.
Yeah, continued.
There's a question in the chat. How many viewers do we have? Do you know, Tracy?
28 currently.
28.
We're getting up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I need to do a live stream.
Last stream we did, we had about 1,000. I've got about 1,000 views on that one since it was posted. So yeah, we're getting some nice interest on it.
That's good. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Kevin's always a draw.
Yeah. I gotta believe that.
Kittens. I have a shiny squirrel.
I like squirrels.
If you want to be distracted, the shiny squirrel club. So it's actually a thing. The shiny squirrel club.
Before we go,
ADHD folks.
Speaking of shiny squirrels, how do you like your 3D printer?
Oh, it's the most useful and versatile tool in my toolbox.
I just bought one, and I'm having a ball with it.
Oh yeah,
making everything. But I've gotten to I like the exotic filaments. So right now I'm printing up a nylon glass fiber thing for the radio box I'm making, just to have some fun. Another thing I wanted to do is the enclosures, the Hammond enclosures, which I really love. But I wanted to do something a little more exotic there too. So I'm wondering if 3D quantum filaments or something like that for enclosure boxes for end-fed half waves would be something people would be interested in. I don't know.
3D quantum filament.
Yeah, they have the filaments that are the color changing filaments.
You can. Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yes. If you go to Matter Hackers, it's like they call it the quantum filament or something like that.
Yeah. They're two tones that are kind of together.
Yeah, they fade in and out, kind of, which I thought was
as you turn the object, it changes its tone.
Yes.
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah. See,
I made a lot of little decorative toys and things for my kid when he was younger. But most of my stuff's been practical and functional.
Mine too. I made the first thing I made was a phone stand. So.
For sure. Oh yeah. Well, nothing within reach, but I got all kinds of stuff in here. But yeah, it's the most versatile tool in my toolbox. It's like a replicator. The ability to say, gee, I wish I had a thing that would hold this a certain way. Well,
right.
Make it.
Make it. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, I've been having a ball with that. I don't. What kind is yours? I tried to catch the brand on the video, but I didn't see it.
It's an Anycubic i3 Mega. So it's Anycubic's clone of Prusa's i3.
Okay.
It's a steel frame, it's really rigid. In fact, the first 2.5 years that I was on the road, I never had to re-level the bed. I just take it out, put it on, and print, and it held its adjustments.
Oh, that's cool.
Even with all the vibration on the road,
That's cool. Yeah.
It's a very, very rigid box.
Nice. I was thinking about picking up one of the dual filament ones too. The two head. Actually, the choices came down to something that would do a carbon fiber, or a dual head printer.
Yeah, you'll want if you're going to do carbon fiber, you'll want a ruby nozzle.
I got the carbon fiber version. So.
Yep, you'll want a ruby nozzle, or you'll be wearing your nozzle outs real quick.
I actually hardened it's this one, and I got a couple spares, so I'm not.
Yeah, you can use stainless steel too.
Yeah, stainless steel. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks again, Kevin. Thanks to everybody who tuned in to take in tonight's and participated through the chat. We really appreciate the support. Everybody have a really nice evening, and you guys, happy 4th of July, and tomorrow's Canada Day. So any Canadians, happy Canada Day tomorrow.
It's the 4th already?
Yeah.
It'll be Monday, right?
Yeah, Monday.
Yeah, Monday will be the 4th.
Yep. So
all right,
get those fireworks ready.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Take care.
Take care. Yeah,
come on, Tracy. You're the only one. Come on, both hands.
Jeez.
He can't do it.
I'm going to need a hand pass after that.
All right.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night. Thanks.